Hi, everybody, and it is Monday, and it's time for Moohead Radio. I'm your host, a big and furry bovine in blue, and co-hosting with me on the panel today is Derek from DF Sports, and we'll be talking, and anyone else who happens to join in. But like I was explaining to Derek, these are beginning the dog days of sports, and a lot of the things that I have to talk about. Are about what's happening in Northeast Ohio sports. And sometimes it's more about the Browns, and sometimes it's more about other things. And I don't mean like women's lacrosse at Case Western Reserve University. I don't do micro that way. Talk about professional sports here. The stuff that unfortunately a lot of you wager on. Well, to begin the program, little tidbit about what's going on with Deshaun Watson's legal situation. We already knew that none of the 22 lawsuits will go to trial during the 2022 season. So that means that, without settlements, this thing will continue on to 2023. As we also discussed in the last program, there is mounting pressure on the NFL coming from many directions, women's groups regarding mistreatment of female employees in the NFL and an attitude in as far as the way the NFL directs itself toward the female gender. And on top of that, they've got the Brian Flores lawsuit that has been joined by three more African-American ex-coaches who just can't get back in the door once they lost their positions. And we have talked about in previous programs what that means. And historically, it means that the NFL is going to have to make some kind of big, bold, meaningless gesture that will take the heat off them in a public relations sense. What we've learned today, as far as the civil case for Deshaun Watson, is this going to be one trial, if there is a trial, or 22 different trials? And of course, the answer is 22 different trials. And let me explain. Yes, the courts will allow such a thing. Two, the judge listening to this is a woman, so she can't, unless a claim that has been made by a plaintiff is absolutely proven beyond a shadow of a doubt, they get wiped off the claim. That doesn't mean that everyone gets, if 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 basically fall out of the running in this thing because they're discredited, there will be 12 more who are credible, and the thing will move on toward a trial phase. Now, the thing that makes it 22 different trials is just to put heat on somebody. I mean, basically, what the lawyer is telling Deshaun Watson's team is, look, we're prepared to go into 2023 and try these things on an individual basis. And this is going to take a long time. And this is going to discredit you more than you think it will. It's all designed to push for a settlement. So for people who are saying, well, if the trial's not going to happen until 2023, that means that he's going to play in 2022. That would be incorrect. The NFL is going to be under a lot of pressure. The Washington Generals situation, or listen to me calling them the Commanders, they are the Generals. They have more complaints from women about all kinds of mistreatment within the organization, and the NFL has to, at some point, direct its ire toward Daniel Snyder. Not only does he not win there, but he hires people And there has just been a nonstop claim of all kinds of abuses within that organization. So the NFL has to, you know, they're going to have to do something about that. And it turns out that 5 other cities, they're getting the same kind of, you know, flack that now in 6 cities total that have NFL teams. So that is going to create a real headache for the NFL.
And with Washington, it's not even just how they run things. It's little things like stadium keep up. I mean, Jalen Hurts almost got trampled on because of the fencing. Right. They had leaking issues. It's like, man, not only can you not run it organizationally, but just keeping things up so people don't have to worry about security. You know, it's like at that point, you have to step in and do something.
Yeah. And yeah, I think that they're going to have to get his ass out of there as an owner. But be that as it may, they're going to be in a position. I mean, they're promoting all kinds of things, and there's going to be a crackdown. And, you know, Callie Brownson for the Browns. I mean, you get these, you know, you get women in positions, you promote them, and that's what the NFL will go to. They will tell the 32 owners that this would be a smart thing for them to do. And we're going to bring Bronk in. Hi, Bronk. How you doing?
Moo. In a lot of pain. I think I sprained my ankle a couple hours ago.
Ouch.
So I'm debating on whether to go to the minor injuries unit or not. I'll see how I feel tomorrow, but it's already come up with a bruise. So, yeah, I'm on
the best thing you can do, ice and compression.
Yeah, I've tried ice for about an hour, and I'm just sort of sitting up watching Moohead to try not to think about the pain.
Well, another thing you can do is have your feet elevated above your heart, because swelling, what did you do to precipitate this? This is the Dr. Moo segment.
I basically, my right leg doesn't function properly, and I caught my foot on something and went over on my ankle. So
that hurts.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rick May. Yes, they are a generally lousy football team.
But enough about me. I'm not going to be playing for the Cavs anytime this year, or the Washington Commanders or Generals.
Right, whatever they are, and so everything that the NFL can mete out punishment. Do I think they would do it in 2022 if there was absolutely no settlement? I think they'd have lesser grounds to do that on, but they may be under enough heat that they're, I mean, look what they did to Kaepernick. He'd never played again. He just took a knee, and it was like, you're not supposed to do that. You're out of here. And that was not even a matter of guilt or innocence. It was a matter of image. And if the NFL decides this is against the image that they are trying to portray in their new PR wave, he could get some kind of suspension during the course of the 2022 year. So I don't want fans to go off half-cocked and say, this means this, because it does not. And we just have to wait and sit it out. The other thing I've been watching is the Kansas City Royals getting Stephen Kwan to death. This is really hilarious. I mean, and nobody knows who Stephen Kwan is. He's a minor league player who's 24 years old, who hit 300 every year in the minor leagues, but he's a slap and tickle hitter, a punch and Judy hitter.
Yeah, I saw him play, and he's like an old school dead ball era, guy from like 1910, 1920. But you know what? He doesn't fucking strike out.
That's right.
He never strikes out. In fact, I don't think he probably swung and missed at anything. And there you go. So I saw the game on free MLB TV for opening day, and I wish I hadn't watched that whole thing. But now that I don't have MLB radio. Now the Indians start winning, and I don't watch it. Or Indians? Did I say Indians? Guardians. Sorry.
Yeah, well, same difference.
Commanders, Generals.
Yeah, the funny
The
thing
Cleveland
is,
Generals.
yeah, Stephen Kwan is the kind of player that Major League Baseball people, front office people, and the promoters of the game don't want. He's skinny, he has no power, and he is. I mean, do you know that if somebody had Rod Carew today, they would change the arc of his swing and try to turn him into a power hitter?
Yeah, they probably.
I mean, guys from our generation don't understand all of this crap. And when you're a team that is like the Guardians, who have some pitching, whether they can close out games, I think Class A is off to a horrible start. But be that as it may, you're going to be in low-scoring games. You need people who are able to consistently get the job done and make contact. You have Austin Hedges up in the at the plate, and you're fucked. He's not. God. He's just going to strike out, and he's not going to get anybody to to move from second to third, or what you need to do to move runners.
Well, I have a view on this as far as hitting in the major leagues right now. I mean, particularly after enduring that horrible opening day game where Bieber got no run support. What hitters should try to do, because of all the late movement on the baseball, anybody who tries squaring up a baseball nowadays with a big fat swing is going to be a big fat loser 9 out of 10 times. And you might as well just go for these like short punchy swings and try to make contact and get on base. And you might be lucky. You might hit the ball to the outfield of the Cleveland Indians with Rosario back there, and you might get a double for no reason whatsoever. Why they didn't call like 5 errors on the Indians in that opening day game, I will never know, because it was some of the worst fielding I've ever seen in my life.
There was a huge problem today. I mean, when they were needing, they were ahead 6-5, and Owen Miller had led off the inning with a double, and on a 3-0 pitch, Mercado roped one in the alley that the outfielder ran down, and Owen Miller just stood there between second and third and didn't tag up in advance.
Fucking hell.
And so now, fortunately, it didn't come back to bite them, but a lot of just mistakes. The thing with Kwan that's funny, besides being an underdog, he's the Gomer Hodge, and go back and look it up.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have time. Yeah. He's having his moment in the sun. But the truth is, they looked up a stat that he had not swung and missed at a baseball since the middle of September. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, minor leagues and all, and so far up in Cleveland, he's making contact. The thing that made it so funny today, he comes up to the plate. I just want to tell people, because they're not watching, and I don't blame you.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough.
But he comes up to the plate in a situation where there are basically 3 men on base, and he's working the count. And they are playing him to the opposite field because he's a banjo hitter, and they're daring him, go ahead and try to pull the ball. And the pitcher, Barlow, throws him a breaking pitch, and he just whaps it down the right field line and drives in all 3 runs. Fuck him! I'm like, wow, you're feeling really bad when you've been quanned to death.
Wow.
Funny stuff, but it's the time that we live in, and that kind of hitter. And the fact is, normally, if you'd look at a guy at the minor leagues and say, at single A, Mahoning Valley, he hit 300. At double A, he hit 300. When they promoted him up, they hit 300. And it's like, it's just not, it's like 2 home runs and 39 runs batted in, but he's getting his bat on the ball. Now, the fact that Cleveland doesn't have any real power hitters who could really damage you, that isn't Stephen Kwan's fault.
Not at all.
And it is amazing to me that if you're going to be a cheap ass, low salary, low payroll team that only is interested in keeping the pitchers as long as they can to keep the score respectable, then it only makes sense that you would at least try to find hitters who'd make contact. We hate these guys. It was like Diaz when he was with the Indians. And, all he did was hit the ball to the opposite field and get on base and hit 300 every year in the minor leagues. And in the major leagues, hit the ball really well. And they said, look at the size of him. We can change his swing and turn him into a power hitter. And then they got rid of him.
Oh, yeah. And they fucked around with Victor Martinez. They fucked around with that other guy that I just in between Victor and Diaz. We've always had a guy like that. And I don't know.
Yeah, a short swing and contact just doesn't get it anymore. And that's one of the reasons why I just can't watch it. It's like I was laughing. I was laughing so hard when he roped that ball down the right field line.
I'll watch the highlights. I'll go on MLB and watch. They're bound to have it on the highlights.
Well, it's kind of like Omar Vizquel. He's that kind of build, and he's not a switch hitter. He's just strictly a left-handed hitter, and he will foul the ball off. He'll waste pitches and just kind of hit holes where he can, and he'll walk. He'll take walks.
Yeah. You got a wild cat in there?
Yeah, that's me.
That is so loud coming through the mic. That's hilarious.
He's about 2 yards away, too. He's not by the microphone.
Wow.
He's about 2 yards away.
He's got quite the voice. I think he needs a podcast.
Yeah, well, I was thinking of having a what's the thing? Just Fans site for my cats, because they're all a bit internet celebrities on Facebook, but they get more likes than I ever do for anything. So there you go.
So with that said and done, there's nothing much happening in the world of the Browns. Still no word on Clowney and all that. But look, if you're living in Northeast Ohio, the Cleveland Cavaliers just at least assured themselves of 2 more basketball games. You live to see another day. And they beat a Milwaukee team that was not playing any of its starters, but they crushed them. And they got the job done. Now they got to be in you got nothing to lose mode going into Brooklyn tomorrow to play a Nets team that isn't going to lose at home to the Cavaliers. But then the Cavaliers have a second game that will be a home game for Cleveland against either, help me here, Charlotte or Atlanta. And, Atlanta's had our number this year. Trae Young has our number. And the question that people are asking is Jared Allen going to be able to play and in any of these games? And the answer for tomorrow is no. He was working out with his left hand. They have removed the splint, but it's a real touch and go situation with him. And I think the best that the Cavaliers would be hoping for would be if they don't win in Brooklyn, which is, again, almost a given with the way the league is. The league is not going to let Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving go home. Correct. I mean, that's just the way the league is run. They'll get 45 to 50 free throws before they go home. Okay. It's going to be,
even if the Cavs win, then Brooklyn would play Charlotte or Atlanta too at home, I would imagine.
Yeah, but they're not going to allow, Jesus.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I mean, we're dead meat.
Yeah. I mean, just like we were, you look when, we played the 76ers and, it's like Harden and Embiid. I mean, they got 42 free throws. I mean, in that game, I mean, you can't beat them that way. Now, that doesn't mean that when they play Brooklyn, that it will fall that way, but it will for one team and the other. And I'll tell you, the history of the 76ers is to crumble and fall apart in the playoffs. And if there's any indication that the 76ers do that, then the NBA will turn the screws on the 76ers as an organization. That's the way the NBA works. But I think that there's no reason why the Cavaliers could not beat Charlotte or Atlanta and get into a full series. And that's what we should all be rooting for, instead of just going silent and saying, oh, well, the Guardians suck, which I don't dispute the fact that the Guardians are not a contending team in any way, shape, or form. And it's not football season. I don't care about the NBA. If you give a fuck about your city, you'll support the Cleveland Cavaliers. They've given the city so much more than they were expected to.
Oh, God.
No, it's not perfect. There's been injuries galore. The best that the Cavs can hope for is that Jared Allen might be able to play a small role in a game against Charlotte or Atlanta. And that becomes important because, you know, force Trae Young to hit outside shots if you have to, but don't let him get into the paint and get other people involved. Let him beat you by himself. That's the key to beating that team. So maybe Jared Allen could play some kind of small role in being big tree in the lane and just dissuading people from going in there. But I mean, he had 3 fingers taped together. They were all taped together.
How's Mobley doing? Is he not hurt anymore? Is he
right? He
back to
played the
normal?
last game and he had 18 points and 10 rebounds. Did a nice job, and it was in lesser minutes because they had such a big lead early on, and he looked great. I didn't see any signs of ankle issues or anything like that. His quick jump was there. I think that, I think that he needs to have Jared Allen. Jared Allen is a massive space eater. And even though he doesn't block shots like Evan Mobley, who had 4 more block shots in the last game. Welcome back, Evan. But he's a big, imposing guy who you just can't move with your body. And if you're playing somebody, a big guy, he eats up space in the paint, and he can alter shots. He's not a big shot blocker, but he can alter shots, and he plays physically enough. And down low, he can muscle the ball up. So we would need them to win. We would need him.
Perfect pair.
And Toby's world is actually right, or Toby versus the world. And I'll put his comment up. And this is the most fickle fan base there is of all of the sports. We're Cleveland Browns fans, no matter how horrifyingly bad they've been or how dysfunctional they are. We're diehard Browns fans. But it was sickening to watch the bandwagon effect that LeBron James had coming back the second time, and the playoff runs and all that, and only to see that when he went to LA, all those people just picked up their tents and went with him. They Allie Cliftoned the organization.
I can't tell you how many people I know that I saw with LeBron Cavs jerseys that the next week had LeBron Lakers jerseys. I mean,
That's right.
It's unbelievable.
And this is not to rap Allie Clifton. I think, and everybody knows my broadcast background, she's better off career-wise in Los Angeles than she was in Cleveland. And LeBron helped her get that gig, and she's done a good job since she's gotten there. So that's, all's well and good there. But what I'm saying is fans just turning their back. And, places like realcavsfans.com, I mean, really good, solid forum, man, they bled fans because they weren't real. They swelled up to such huge numbers on that forum. And it was not real numbers, because as soon as LeBron left, all those people left, and that's it. If the fans follow players, not teams, and it's kind of an unfortunate thing. The cry is to bring LeBron back, and another coach bit the dust, but Frank Vogel was the wrong guy. I mean, if you're in the Western Conference and you bring in a guy whose name was made by playing stall ball in Indiana, it was a bad matchup from the get-go. People expected more Showtime Lakers, and what they ended up getting was Frank Vogel, and I've always referred to him as the shit sniffer. I didn't like him as a coach for the Indiana Pacers, and everyone in Los Angeles saw what happened when he had superstars. He didn't know how to coach them. He didn't know how to change the way he's like Tom Thibodeau. Didn't matter who he has. They end up with a stalled out offense. And in the West, you can't afford to have that kind of stuff happen. And yes, they had injuries, but the roster that Polinsky put together, the whole thing was a clusterfuck. So he's gone now. Vogel's gone. And LeBron's got another year for sure there. And I don't really care about LeBron James coming back. To Cleveland. I don't care about that. I care about whether the Cavaliers are going to be able to get rid of Cedi Osman and I'll tell you, I would not, if I had any way, I would trade Karis LeVert. He's the wrong guy. And I credit the organization with trying something, but the guy's not a good enough scorer. And if you give up Colin Sexton to keep the taller Karis LeVert, you're getting rid of a 49% shooter for a guy and a 39 to 40% three-point shooter for a guy who hits 32% of his threes and only 43% of his field goals and is not a finisher and takes bad shots and plays just as bad a defense as Colin Sexton. I would rather see the Cavs try to get more of a complementary crew that works. We needed an additional scorer, but he's just a volume shooter. He's not the guy. So we need to supplement the guys that we have, Darius Garland and Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen. Those three guys are like for real. Isaac Okoro will show up every so often and score points and then just go 3 games and score 3 points a game. If you run him out of the corner, that's the only place he's hitting threes from is from the corner. And otherwise, he's driving into the paint against guys who are much bigger than he is. We need what Dylan Windler was supposed to bring, which was perimeter shooting, but his shot is broken. And you'd have to ask the coaching staff what in the hell happened to Dylan Windler. They might say injuries, but there's something in his head. He looks mechanically way, way off. So the Cavaliers need, if you have a Darius Garland who can get around his guard consistently, get into the paint and feed people, look at old Kevin Love. Kevin Love, man, in that last game, holy shit. He was 8 for 11 from 3. I mean, he was just firing the ball in from 32 feet away from the basket. I'm not exaggerating. Anything he saw that was open, he just chucked it up and it went in. And that's what having Darius Garland gives you. And Rondo will be gone next year because he's too old and too turnover prone, and he doesn't get up and down the floor well enough. There are things that we have to do, obviously, but it's a good base 3 players that we have, and it's a matter of, and I like Okoro as a defender and a guy who can, try to grow and develop a little bit more mid-range game, but I don't like Karis LeVert for this team. I just don't think that he fits in whatsoever.
Well, if we get through, right, we're probably playing Miami. Is that like a good learning experience for this Cavs team to go against the Miami Heat in the playoffs? I mean, are we going to win a game?
Yeah, you'll win a game, but that may be all you win. But yes, I think the thing that's interesting, Austin Carr said something actually that was something that was close to really intelligent.
What relevant even?
Yeah, he said that he found out that the same guy that he played against during the season was a different guy in the playoffs. And truer words could not be spoken. And I think that is what the Cavaliers are going to learn, is that you got to have a motor, and you got to know when to turn that motor on, and you got to have the presence of mind to seize opportunities and moments, so that when you're down the stretch in close games where we have failed recently, you need more go-to people. And I hate to say it, because I am not a one or two guy hog the ball offense, but when you look at what the Nets have done in their last several games, including the one against the Cavaliers, they were down by 5 points going into the third quarter against us and against the Knicks, who are terrible. But in the fourth quarter, they outscored both teams by over 20 points by just giving the ball to Durant and Kyrie Irving over and over and over again.
That's a great point. I don't know if you see it by Peter there. It's like what happened with the Browns and Austin Hooper. Great try going out and getting somebody. Would have liked it to work, but at the end of the day, Karis LeVert just not the right fix.
Yeah, I mean, there are people who fit into a scheme, and I don't mean to be harsh on Karis LeVert. He might be a really nice guy, but every team he's played for, which would be the Nets and the Pacers, were teams where they were so bad that he could just take as many shots as he wanted to. Right. And once the Nets got their shit together and got the group of people together, he was coming off the bench, and he was expected just to get on the floor, play a few minutes, not lose the lead, that kind of thing. He wasn't expected to come off the bench and become a killer sixth man or anything like that. And in the playoffs, it's just huge. I mean, Philadelphia will have two players in Embiid and in Harden, who, if you breathe on them, you'll be assessed a foul, and they will go to the free throw line, and they will win every game at the free throw line 100% of the time. Wow. If you're the Cavaliers and you're the 76ers, you're going to be 0-100 against that team in playoff games, because down the stretch, the whistles will just start blowing. The Cavaliers need to have more players who are respected within the league. And I hate this about the NBA, because you like to think, oh man, 5 men moving the ball. It's like wrong. No, it is a star league. And we should be grateful. Evan Mobley has a great future, and Darius Garland really has become an exceptional player here in his third year. And, the fact is, Colin Sexton has sat for a year, and that may have wizened him and done him some good. I don't want to give up on that player. Even if he's the sixth man coming off the bench, whatever it is, he can put the ball in the basket. He's not going to help you defensively, but in the end, in the fourth quarter of games, the Cavaliers, they can't score the ball. And the teams they're playing, have guys who are go-to guys. And those go-to guys, if it's a Trae Young, he can beat you with the outside three. He can beat you with the floater, or he can get into the paint and kick that ball out. And he has some capable spot-up shooters who will bury you. And it's no different than when LeBron played with the Cavaliers. It was like an old Kyle Korver was rejuvenated, because if LeBron got into the paint, everyone had to collapse. And like the game where Kevin Love scored, 32 points in one quarter. And he was just the beneficiary of drive and kick. And the game becomes a drive and kick game. And when you're a top team with stars, the drive results in a foul call in your favor, and the kick ends up with the ball going out to, a Joe Harris, or, somebody who is a marksman shooter like Kyle Korver was, and they'll bury you that way. Cavs don't have that three-point shooter. We have Kevin Love, who played specific amount of minutes, but we do not have a guy who is just radar man from the three-point line and behind. Just don't have him yet. Yeah, and
looking back through old Guardian rosters, or can we say Indian rosters if it's historical? Eric Gonzalez was the guy I was thinking of, and he was on the same team as Yandy Diaz. I mean, there's a lot of guys, and Francisco Mejia. So those three guys were all given up on. and have had checkered futures.
Well, Mejia never developed in San Diego. I don't know what the hell happened. He was neither fish nor fowl. He was a small catcher who obviously couldn't play any other position on the field. And I don't know. Something happened to him. He was a consistent 300 hitter in the minor leagues. And I don't know. He was never able to replicate that at the major league level. I can't even tell you. If you could look it up.
I'll look it up what he's
to
doing.
see where Francisco Mejia is now, if he's still there. But he lost his job to Austin Hedges in San Diego. What does that tell you?
Correct.
He was a bad defensive catcher, and he was hitting 190 down there.
He's on Tampa Bay apparently.
Oh, okay. And how did he do last year?
Hit 260 batting average, 6 home runs, batted 250 at bats. So he played about half the games.
Yeah, he was not a starter.
Yeah,
he was a used player, and it's no different than Diaz. Yandy Diaz did really well for a lot of these guys. End up in Tampa Bay. They love to pick up bargain guys like that who have failed in other places that they think they can recycle talent, which is a smart way to go if you want to keep your payroll down.
yeah.
And I know that Yandy, he never developed the power that the Indians wanted of him. He had a good year in Tampa Bay, but I think last year he was hurt some, and for something's telling me that he didn't have as productive a year last year as he did the year before.
He's still at Tampa Bay as well. He's already had 6 at bats this season, so he's still there. And the other guy that we had on that team was Gio Urshela, who
well, I mean, that's the story. Nobody will ever understand when certain players blossom and under what circumstances. There are people who go to New York and they just fail. I mean, with the glare of the press on them, and Gio Urshela just came out of nowhere to become, well, we all knew he was a really good infielder. Defensively.
Yeah, now he's with the Twins. He went from the Yankees to the Twins. He's playing for the Twins now, so I don't know what happened there, whether it was a trade or free agency or.
Wow. Well, maybe he got his payday because he proved himself. But boy, he was really good, man, when he was with the Yankees. It was really impressive. Tony's going to join the conversation, having heard the word Twins. Hi, Tony.
Hey, what's happening, fellas?
Hey. So Gio Urshela is now a Twin?
Yes, he is. We traded the ever-loving Josh Donaldson to the Yankees for him.
Josh Donaldson.
Gary Sanchez.
Yeah.
He of hitting 156 fame.
Oh, he's better than Austin Hedges. Come on.
Well, Urshela was a all-field no-hit in Cleveland.
That name?
Who?
Mike Rouse.
Oh, my God, yeah. Former second baseman for the Indians.
Eric Wedge's fucking pet. Remember you ranting and raving about that fucker.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there are players that we've seen who didn't belong in the major leagues at all. But it's I wanted to point something out here to people who are so hung up on the Deshaun Watson thing and athletes being role models and all this kind of thing. And, I can never cheer for the Browns again if they, he hits the field. I'm no longer a fan. Watching Tiger Woods play the Masters was painful the last 2 rounds.
Peter Ellis.
Great. Yeah.
The first 2 rounds, well, the first round was truly entertaining, and the crowd was really cheering him on. The last 2 days of the tournament, they were just trying to will him through the course. And there are people who I talk to because, I lived in South Carolina, which is just where we lived at the time was not very far away from where Augusta gets played. And, Tiger did all the things he was supposed to do after his 4th round. He did the interviews. He did everything he needed to do. And he graciously conceded, to Scheffler, the guy who won or Shefflin. I'm not even sure, but he's the number one rated player.
Scotty Scheffler.
Yeah, he's number one rated player now in the game. And but they said that there was enough respect for Tiger that they saw him going off into his car. And it was obvious in his last round he was having trouble walking down hills.
Oh.
He was limping, but he was sucking it up, man. He was sucking it up.
Wow.
But when he went back to his car, he could barely walk.
Wow.
And nobody took a camera out there and in his misery showed him up. And I guess my point is this. Tiger Woods is not a role model. All right? If you're teaching your kids how to go about living a good life, they don't take Ambien in the morning and crash cars into trees. They don't go 85 miles an hour in a 35 mile an hour zone and plunge their car into a position which could have killed countless people and damn near killed themselves and got his damn near got his leg amputated. All right. And who probably had a lot to do with fucking his marriage up. He is not a role model. But if you can see yourself clear to understand, Tiger Woods is the greatest golfer who ever lived. No complaints about Jack Nicklaus. Jack Nicklaus was great too. You'll say, well, Nicklaus has this record. You're going to use the Babe Ruth argument that people did until, Hank Aaron did what he did. But the truth of the matter is he was the most dominant golfer that the game has ever seen. And have some respect for his skill as a player. And that's the way I feel about Deshaun Watson. I can't tell you what kind of a person he is, but I will tell you this about Tiger Woods. He was a prick. He would get his caddy to bully on people from the gallery, telling them to go fuck themselves. These are people who paid to watch this guy play. And I don't remember the name of his caddy. Williams, I think, was his last name. What a prick. And he was doing all of the henchman work for Tiger. And Tiger didn't want to be bothered by the fans. He was just focused on what he was doing. And he was not a friendly guy at all. He was a prick. But he was so good at what he did that, he deserves the commendation to come back, even though he was the master of his own demise. Fans were out there cheering him. Now, if they could go out there and cheer Tiger Woods, then God damn it, you can at least acknowledge that Deshaun Watson has skills. And if you can't acknowledge that he has more skills than Baker Mayfield, you're just being haters.
Did you see? I hate to even say this, but did you see? You probably didn't. Something that an Oklahoma fan made after the unfortunate passing of Dwayne. Did you see the post?
No.
Somebody created a story headline that said quarterback dies so ours can live, talking about Baker to the Steelers.
That's just horrendous stuff.
I've never been so mad in my life reading
and I'll ask you this, Derek, because I know you're a big Ohio State booster, and the loss of Dwayne Haskins is a fishy story, to say the least. Have they come to any conclusions as to why he was at 6:30 in the morning walking across Interstate 495 in South Florida?
What I heard is he ran out of gas.
Yeah, that's
in his car and was running across the highway to a gas station to get a small gas tank to fill up his, what he could in his car, and then drive it to fill up the rest. And it sucks. I mean, and then Gilles Brandt, that old fucking decrepit piece of shit.
Speak up, Tony. You have kind of a tough connection here. Speak up, Tony.
I'm in the car. Sorry.
Gotcha. Okay, go ahead.
Gilles Brandt, did you hear that fucking interview? That
no.
Old decrepit.
You didn't hear that?
No,
basically coming out and saying Haskins deserved everything that came to him, and it was bad.
Repeat again. Derek, explain to me what he said.
So, well, first of all, you know about Schefter. You heard that, right?
As far as?
So it started with Schefter and then it went to Gilbrandt. Schefter tweeted out when it was official. I'd have to pull up the exact wording, but it was basically, for lack of a better term, it was a nice way of saying a failed NFL quarterback dies. Not talking about his accomplishments.
Yeah, said he
Nothing
was
like
just
that.
riddled with problems, pretty much.
Yes, and that was the first initial announcement of the man's death. So I was it. So on top of that, then Gil Brandt comes out in an interview and is basically not even remotely sorry about any of this, not even putting it into consideration that there are people legitimately hurt by this. And he comes out and he basically says, "Oh well, he had it coming to him. You know, he lived every day to die, and he is such a horrible person." He knows nothing about the man. He knows absolutely
What would make
nothing.
him say something like that?
Because my only guess would be he probably, you know how these people are when they have a point and it's like, oh well, the stuff in Washington where he took the picture, it's like, you know, there's people coming out saying, oh, this guy's always going to be a problem. To me, the only explanation I have is maybe he just has never liked him and this was his told you, which is
I mean,
terrible.
to me, when I read the story, and they were specific to say that the accident was reported at around 6:30 in the morning, and it's like, what is he doing when he was earlier or in the day or the day before? I'm not even clear that he was working out with Chase Claypool and one of his other
So
Steeler mates.
The Steelers, all the running backs, wide receivers, and quarterbacks were all um down there in Florida, training and whatnot. And yeah, so I don't know what all happened as far as the timing, but yeah, he ran out of gas, went to go get help, get gas, whatever, and then, you know, got hit and died. And I can just tell you, for me and for everybody, you know, that I know around here, this is beyond devastating. I mean, it's still, me personally, I'm still in disbelief. I mean, you saw the reaction to the Kobe death and how that affected people. That's how it feels here. I mean, the disrespect, A, the man just died. Stop talking about his
Right.
NFL stats. And B, his whole story is not what some people are making it out to be. You got to understand, he's somebody who, you know, there's that clip going around when he was younger saying, "Yeah, I want to play at Ohio State." He accomplished his dream and put up, I believe, many, I can't remember how many, but a lot of records at Ohio State. He completely transitioned Ohio State's style of playing quarterback. There is no Justin Fields. There is no CJ Stroud or the guys to come without Dwayne Haskins. He was the one that changed things here and did tremendous things while he was here at Ohio State. And that's just on the field. That's not even talking about, you know, the stuff with his sister. Go read up on that. You know, all these people coming out and saying, oh, well, he sucks. No, the man, I'm sorry. This has been one of the most frustrating, tough things because it's like, that's my quarterback. And it's a tragedy, you know, but to turn around the same day, Adam Schefter to basically say, hey, failed NFL quarterback who sucks dies.
Yeah.
And then for Gil Brandt to come out and say, oh, well, he had it coming. Are you kidding me?
Well, I mean, is that basically so? If Jamarcus Russell dies, that's going to be the headline. I mean, there's only so many people who have the skill level to be NFL quarterbacks and succeed, and far more have failed than have succeeded. And if you want to look at people who are failures who have self-destructive ways, Johnny Manziel would certainly be head of the class, you know. And I don't know. I remember that what was the story with that Haskins was out in the middle of the COVID thing, that he broke curfew that way, or broke mandate rules. Is that what the story was?
Yeah, something like that. I don't remember exactly.
The only question I would have at 6:30 in the morning, I hope that he had not been drinking and that
Well, yeah, that's what I thought initially. When I heard it, I thought, "Oh my gosh, I hope he didn't mess up and wasn't drunk driving or anything." No, he
He
just
might have been going to an early training session or something.
you
I
just,
mean, that's another
well, he was
possibility. You
definitely
just don't know.
walking on the interstate. So, I mean, he didn't get hit in his car. He got
No.
hit on foot.
yeah.
Yeah.
And, I don't know who would be, if you've never been on Interstate 495, that is taking you basically from West Palm Beach area all the way down into Fort Lauderdale and into that whole part of the state. Man, it's a hugely populated area and multi lanes. And I would never by foot try to cross Interstate 495 in South Florida.
Wow. Yeah, I mean,
And quite honestly, driving it, and I've driven it on a couple of occasions, it scares the bejeebers out of you. There's so many lanes.
And
It's-
you know what makes me the most mad though? The man, if you go back, like I said, and look at his story, his parents from day one have been great, nothing but supportive at every game. That's well documented. I told you the stuff with his sister. You got to go look into that. The man also has a wife and kids. And he just got essentially, murdered. Even if it was maybe partially his fault for not paying attention, it's hard to say. But why, these people, they don't understand what it's like to lose somebody you care about. Because if you put yourself in that family's shoes, it's frustrating. It's annoying because you're dealing with all this stuff. And then on top of that, you got these idiot people who are doing stuff for attention. And speaking of, guess what? Adam Schefter now, I listened to my podcast. I apologized. So now you're going to use the man's death and you saying he wasn't worth anything to now turn around and have people listen to your podcast. Just come on.
Yeah, it's when I read the news, you swallow real hard. A guy that young, 24 years of age, and his life ending. And the last thing I care about was how good a quarterback he was. This is somebody who had an entire life in front of him. And from what I saw of him playing in the NFL, it wasn't going to be playing quarterback in the NFL. Okay. But that doesn't mean he couldn't have had a special and dignified life.
yeah, correct.
So the loss has nothing to do with whether he would have succeeded as a quarterback or not. And again, this is the kind of blinders you see that the fans have. And, it is the CTE blinders, and it's ignoring things that are interfering with good people's lives. A lot of people came out and said that Haskins was the guy who always had a smile on his face. I think maybe the worst thing that you could say about him as a quarterback is that maybe he didn't take the learning part of this thing so well and so easily and didn't take to it because he had a lot of ability. He had a lot of natural ability. But when you go up that one notch into the NFL, it is just really a big step.
And he had 1 year starting at Ohio State. That's what people do not remember. He came in the Michigan game. JT Barrett got hurt, won the game on the road, then turned around the next season. And I forget, somebody put it in the comments here, broke the passing yards, I want to say, all time. Yeah, beat the OSU passing record by 1,500 yards, 50 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. And to act like the man was just worthless is just, at the end of the day, that's just horrible for anybody.
Well, when I look at Cleveland.com in this headline, is Baker Mayfield really that bad? I mean,
Wow.
this is not how I identify with people. And I mean, is Baker Mayfield really that bad? And what does that bad mean? That he's caught in the middle of something that teams are waiting for the Browns to pay off that $18.8 million. And no, he's not that bad. Yes, he's good enough to be a quarterback in the NFL, but it is not clear at this point whether he has the stuff and the physical capabilities and the ability to run an offense to take the next big step upward. That's all I can say about Baker Mayfield, except that the teams in the league are making the Browns be punished for a $230 million guaranteed contract, and it has hung Baker Mayfield out to dry, and nobody is making offers. So now, of course, the media says, well, is it because he sucks? You know, you got Ryan Leaf, who's on the radio now, and Ryan Leaf has to live his life as like the greatest bust, NFL quarterback bust in history. You know, he's the Kwame Brown of football.
Oh dear.
No, I mean,
you are right.
We do. We label people.
It's brutal, isn't it? It's absolutely brutal and unnecessary. I've got Haskins' stat from 2018.
Yes.
He went 13-1. Percentage completion 70%. Threw for 4,831 yards, 50 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and then also rushed for 108 yards and had 4 TDs rushing. So that's pretty elite stats for.
You never kick a horse when a horse is down, and you know something. Toby. The media is there to get viewership and draw attention to itself. Mark, Ross, again.
Yeah.
You can argue it from any number of directions. Baker Mayfield will play for another football team when the Browns pony up the $18.8 million, which they will have to do. They will have no choice. All right.
At least most of it.
That's right. And that's part of what Haslam has to eat for the way this whole thing was handled. That's business.
I got a feeling that Baker's going to get traded on draft day, and we won't get a lot. We might move up, 20 spaces in a round at some point or something like that.
Could be like a Rosen, where he was traded in the 3rd round to Miami.
Yeah, where we go up like to the 2nd round from the 3rd round, or something like that. I think that's what's going to happen.
For fans to hate Baker Mayfield the way they do, or to love Baker Mayfield the way they do, it doesn't make much sense to me, because it's a 53-man roster. It is the guys who contribute as a team and the Ronnie Harrisons of the world who commit bogus, stupid penalties and think of themselves before of their teams. Those are the players I get down on, because we should never forget that there are individuals who are unsung on the offensive lines and in the defensive trenches at tackle. And, they don't have glamour positions, and their bodies get the shit beat out of them. And this whole notion that is Baker that bad, or it's Baker's fault, or Baker's great and there was no problems with him at all. You're all just making a mockery out of common sense. Just stop it.
Why can't we move on? I mean, I thought at least when the Watson trade happened, I thought, okay, at least the Baker wars will be over. No, it's gotten worse almost.
Yeah,
and
it's gotten worse, man.
It's Browns fans and it's Oklahoma fans. And I'm not throwing shots, but I have never, ever seen a college fan base go to war, going at people's throats personally over the Browns not keeping Baker. I mean, it's like, as Ohio State fans, I'm not sitting here saying, "Oh, Justin Fields, why would you criticize him?" I don't care.
Now, for me, want me to be honest, I want Deshaun Watson to do really well and bring the Browns into the playoffs. I want Baker Mayfield to go on in his career and prove himself and get his team into the playoffs.
Yeah.
Why trample somebody? Am I supposed to be happy that a Steeler died? Give me a fucking break. At what point does this stupidity just stop? And this is a human life, And again, the end story of the program, because I got to get off the air, and I'm really irritated because I agree with you, Derek. It's become hateful. Gary Brown, who was the former running backs coach for the Brown, is dead at 52 years of age. And this is what I'm talking about. He was the running backs coach for Jerome Harrison, Jamal Lewis, Peyton Hillis, and Trent Richardson. He became the Cowboys running backs coach from 2013 to 2019 and was the running backs coach at Wisconsin in 2021. But he had been in hospice care for the last few weeks and had battled significant health issues since 2019. And they're not going to tell us what the health issues are. He was 52 years old. He didn't even make the average of 57. So shut the fuck up. These people are dropping like flies. Don't tell me about the image of the NFL or how you suffer as fans. You give these players respect. You give Tiger Woods respect for having the will to go back out there and try, even though he fucked himself up. So you should have the strength within you that if Baker Mayfield plays well, so what? You were wrong. So what? Somebody will benefit. Baker will benefit. Another team will benefit. I want the Browns to benefit from better quarterback,
And sometimes both sides just need a new start. And before we end, I just want to say something quick to comment here. Radu, or I can't pronounce your name, I'm sorry, but he said Schefter was thinking more as a Michigan graduate with that tweet. Well, let me tell you something. I don't care where he was from. It doesn't matter where he graduated from. It's still a human life. The Michigan program, football program, and university, whatever, on Twitter even came out and said something about Dwayne Haskins losing his life. There's a fine line between football and humanity. And for you, if that's your excuse for Adam Schefter, and I'm not saying you, not you personally, whoever commented, I'm not saying you, but if that was Schefter's thinking, I don't like Dwayne Haskins, he went to Ohio State, then you should be fired. Not suspended. You should be fired because
you have no objectivity.
Exactly.
And look, I lived in Flint, Michigan for almost 10 years, and I hung out in Ann Arbor. And let me tell you something. The fans are rabid there. I never felt like I had any hate case against Braylon Edwards when he came to Cleveland. I could have cared less. It's all about who's going to make the team better. I ran out of patience with Braylon because he dropped too many passes, not because he was from Michigan. And this whole thing is all one gigantic excuse. The guy's dead from getting hit by a dump truck on an interstate at 6:30 in the morning, and he's dead at 24. And the Browns' former running back coach is dead at 52 because God only knows what health problems he had, when he played the football game.
And on top of that, as much as we've been through this week, JOK's brother murdered. He's over in Ghana having a football camp, and his brother gets murdered by burning alive. It's like, and people want to sit here and make jokes. Yeah. People dying is not a joke.
It's not funny. And it's, and how somebody runs their business, you have every right to decide you don't want to support that team anymore. You have every right. If you decide to go rogue on Jimmy Haslam, I can tell you, he's done some things that make me shake my head, and I'm not proud of him, not by any stretch of the imagination. But you know something? You're not going to convince me. You're not going to convince Derek. You're not going to convince anybody of a goddamn thing. You're just like the goddamn far left and the far right. You're not going to fucking convince me of anything. You're not going to convince me that Donald Trump didn't incite an insurrection on the Capitol. You're not going to get me to believe that. And God damn it, you're not going to get me to believe all of this bullshit about, multiple genders and changing the English language for a bunch of people who are gender confused people. You're not going to convince me. So just shut the fuck up when you're in my company. We could talk about something else. We don't have to argue other people into submission. It's not necessary. If you don't want to cheer for the Browns, don't try to convince me. I'm just telling you what's happened legally. And I'll make my own mind up. I don't need noise. Jesus. All right.
Boo.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody, for tuning into this edition of Moohead Radio. We will be back again, as we always are on Friday.
My cats were agreeing with you during your ranting as well.
Yeah, enough. I mean, enough of batting my head in. You're not going to change my mind. I'm not going to change your mind. I just want to keep everybody up with what's happening in the legal sense with Deshaun Watson. And I want Baker Mayfield to be employed and have a chance to prove himself. I mean, that's fair. That's the real American way, not the America that we live in today. But that's the real American way, is that somebody can go from being, a walk-on to become, or else there'd be no fucking Rudy movies. Okay. That's the American dream. So I'll leave it at that. But we will be back Friday, and you never know. Something might happen on the free agency front for the Browns. I hope so, because we need some more pieces. Thanks a lot for tuning in.
Draft's getting closer.
Yeah, we'll be back again on Friday. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Bronk. Thanks, Derek. And thank you all. And until next time, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.